Hellboy is back, and this time he's taking on a very creepy nursery rhyme. Here to talk all about Hellboy the Crooked Man are Jack Kesy, Adeline Rudolph, Jefferson White, Hellboy creator Mike Mignola, and director Brian Taylor. Welcome, everyone. We did it. So The Crooked Man is infusing a ton more horror than I think we've seen in this franchise before. How did we land on that specifically? Like, how did that vibe come together to be like, we're going to go full creepy this time around?
I don't think we landed on it. I think you made it that way.
Yeah, I mean, when they came to me and said, we're going to do Hellboy again, which I didn't know they were going to do, I said, well, you've got to do The Crooked Man. It's a self-contained story. It's got everything that Hellboy does. It's my favorite one I've ever written, and it's a horror story. And yeah, we didn't really we got more fantasy, less horror in the other films.
So how did that come to life in the film? Like, what did you say, like, this is how we need to nail the vibe for this thing? Because, like, the trailer is, you know, desaturated and creepy. It's not as sort of like kind of like goofy and over the top that you get to see from some iterations of Hellboy. This time around, it's like this is straight up a creepy horror movie that you're making here. Like, what was the things that you had to get right for that?
Well, I mean, you had to have a director who knew what the comic was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this was an easy one to get to tone because the source material was right there. You know, so my approach from the very beginning coming on was I was really excited to have a script by Michael. I was really excited that we were doing Crooked Man, and the whole thing was like, well, let's just go to the comic book. Let's go to the comic book for the visuals. Let's go to it for the lighting. Let's go to it for the mood. Let's go to it for the tone, and let's really try to capture that and adapt that instead of trying to make something wild and new and some, you know, my version or my interpretation of what it was. No, it's like, let's just get the real thing.
Were you looking towards the comics sort of as storyboarding, as jumping off points? Like,
Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, you could take, some people have already done this with the trailer. I mean, you could take frames from the comic book and compare them to frames of the movie, and it's like 1-to-1. You know, and we should also talk about Richard, one of my favorite artists of all time.
Oh, yeah. I like Richard.
Yeah. No, the late, great Richard Corbin.
Yeah,
know, so,
legendary comics artist who drew The Crooked Man.
So between a visionary visual guy like this and just one of the greatest ever, and then a guy like Corbin, I mean, we had such a wealth of visual material that it was like we didn't have to invent.
We also had a huge advantage that Crooked Man was one story.
Right.
As opposed to every other film, they've been either super, super, super loose adaptations, or, you know, they've tried to put a billion different things for a bunch of different stories. But here we had one story, and it was just easier.
Yeah, there was something in that era of Hellboy. I feel like it was sort of like almost a procedural, like a Night Stalker thing, and he's this wandering sort of, you know, figure who shows up in a town where dark forces have, you know, infested, and he's a plumber, and he's just going to fix their monster problem. And
Right.
if he can, and if not, he'll move on to the next.
If he can't, he's just like, no, you're on your own. Hellboy beats the hell out of people. He kicks a lot of ass, but he also seems like just a fun guy to hang out with. What's the dynamic like between him and the other characters in this movie?
I think our relationship in real life is, to a certain extent,
It's transcended.
Yeah.
Yeah, friendship off screen. Yeah, I think Hellboy. What I like about him, without giving too much away, he's got this transistor radio. He's really desperately trying to be just one of the guys.
Right.
Cool guy, got his hair done. He's got his jacket. He just loves rock and roll, but. You know, he's also really red and big, and he's not quite human. And there's that dilemma, right? And I really enjoyed that aspect of, here's this creature trying to be a human being, but he's really the buffer between a couple of realms and trying to save humanity, maybe. You know, and I think we just took on a relationship between everyone as like a platoon, a small platoon. And we're trying to accomplish something, you know, a goal, right? And we became friends, and yeah.
It feels like Hellboy is a bit of like an unlikely leader. Like, I don't think he's all that comfortable in a leadership position. And I think Jack might perhaps be the same way. I think we were all looking to him. It's his movie. He's on set every day. He's working harder than anybody. And he wore that with such grace and ease that sort of sets the tone for the rest of us. So Jack might be an unwilling leader or a sort of reluctant to lead. But I think for the rest of it was like, hey, if we can work half as hard as Jack,
Right.
we'll know that we've got a great movie here. Yeah, and between both of these guys, 'cause I think Brian similarly, we're trying to accomplish something ambitious and exciting and difficult. We're trying to accomplish something that feels impossible sometimes. But both of these guys were such sort of cool, easy, calm presences on set and such easy leaders that I figured if we just showed up and followed them, we'd wind up somewhere
I didn't
okay.
have to wear a tail, so it was easy for me.
And I think this is by far the most human Hellboy. I think because you don't have all the backstory and all the, I mean, you've got some backstory, but without the BPRD headquarters and all that stuff, he's just a guy, you know, and it's a, you know, it's a relationship just between these three people, and it just makes it more, I don't know, grounded.
Yeah.
Something that I really love about the character is he has a reputation as it's, when you think Hellboy, you think sort of sarcastic, wisecracking kind of thing. But that's there. But in addition to that, he's a character that, like you were saying, he carries a lot of pain, a lot of weight. He carries the weight of the world on him, and so there's like a sadness to him too at the same time, and it's that combination that makes him interesting.
There's sadness that you play, but you don't. It's not Batman where you sit there weeping on a gargoyle for 20 minutes, you know, looking at the moon and.
Everyone deserves a good hard cry on a gargoyle.
Shit, but he wears it.
And he's remarkably non-judgmental as a character. I think he's been through so much crazy shit. My character, Tom Ferrell, stumbles into this guy. He's like afraid that he's going to be judged. He's afraid of his dark past. And Hellboy just sort of immediately accepts him and says, okay, pal, come along. We'll figure it out. And I feel like that's a really, you know, it's a nice, very human thing. You know, I feel like Hellboy finds the good in everybody he sees and sort of brings it out.
With one of the notes we kept from the studio is like, well, why would Hellboy help Tom? And it's like, because Tom's a good guy. And he's had a shitty run of luck. And what else would Hellboy do? I don't think he has an appointment to get to, and it can be rescheduled, whatever it is. It's weird to have to explain that to what a human reaction would be to a studio guy, but that's what happens.
Well, that's like translating to a different language.
Before I let you guys go, I wanted to ask about the transformation process of Jack into Hellboy. Were you washing paint off of your body for hours and days on end? Like, were you finding it in spots where you're like, I didn't know that I could have red paint in there?
You know, the truth is, if he just holds his breath for 6 minutes, it turns red and it's done. We just got to put the horns.
That was it, actually, you know.
Was that fun? Not the holding your breath part. That's not fun.
No, I was definitely finding red paint in mysterious places, for sure. But everyone did a great job. That crew, you know, the makeup, the special effects, they worked so hard. I just waltzed in, and everyone worked really hard around me. You know, honestly, I was in good hands.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining. For those of you at home, keep your eyes peeled for Hellboy, the Crooked Man, coming soon. There's lots more Comic-Con ahead right here on IGN, so don't go anywhere. Thanks, guys.